Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. Let's get this episode started off with a big 4s down after USC football took down UCLA at the Rose Bowl 19-13 on Saturday night. We will get into football later in this episode. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get into it all now. Beach volleyball on Friday had their Cardinal and Gold scrimmage at Merle Norman Stadium. Was not able to find scores or information on it, so it's not happened. Their next action will be their fall season. That appears to be the conclusion of their fall season based on posts I saw from a player about the fall ball season on social media. No schedule is yet to be released for the team. I will report back when I have more information for you all. Swim and dive was actually split this week with the swim teams for both men and women going and taking part in the Texas Hall of Fame Swimming Invitational from October 20th to October 22nd in Austin. It was hosted by Texas, and the best finish was from sophomore Mina Abraham, who won the 200-yard freestyle with a time of 1:42.39. As for the dive teams, they stayed home here in LA. Men took 5th overall in the Trojan Diving Invitational as the women won the overall event. So congrats to the women's dive team on that. Up next, they have a break before they host UC San Diego, I believe it is. They host UC San Diego in their next action on January 11th. That starts at 11 a.m. back home. So they'll have a break for winter, and then they'll be back at it in the new year. So best luck to them when that time rolls around. Cross country, meanwhile, I reported back that I would try to find out information on whether or not anyone from the team was going to represent the USC in the NCAA Championships. It appears that no one has. So USC season ended the week before with the all sectionals, as I believe it was called. So that was the end of the season. Definitely a tough year for the team. Oh, the West Regional. So definitely a tough season for the team. Hopefully they bounce back and have a stronger season next fall in 2025. Men's volleyball had their final fall action, the UCLA fall tournament that took place on last Friday and Saturday. I think it was not sure if it was Pauley Pavilion. Looked like it may have been the Student Activity Center, aka the SAC. But anyways, it appeared they played UCLA. Not sure who else they played. All my information is coming from what I saw on social media. Nothing was really made too public about it. And UCLA didn't really provide much information on their end. So the first spring action will be against Damon at home in Galen Center at 7 p.m. on January 9th. So that should be your first chance to see the Trojans. Baseball, meanwhile, had their Cardinal and Gold series, just 3 games at East LA College. I was able to confirm through people who were there and social media that the Cardinal team won the series 2-1. They took the first 2 games 7-6, 7-2 before the Gold won the finale 3-2 last Friday. Those games were last November 15th, Cardinal won 7-6, November 19th, Cardinal won 7-2, and November 22nd, Gold won 3-2. So that's the end of the fall action. The first game for this team will be on February 14th against George Washington. Time yet still to be determined. Meanwhile, the women's tennis team sent 2 players, Grace Piper and Lily Faircloth, to the NCAAs in Waco, hosted by Baylor, where they won their first, as doubles, they won their first round match for falling 7-5, 6-4 to the Duke duo. Piper also was playing in the singles draw, went 1-1, won her opening round match before falling in the second round to Julia Garcia Ruiz of Oklahoma, 7-6. So the tiebreaker was 7-1 and 6-3 in the second set. So dual match play for the women's tennis team will start in January. And now men's water polo had a big weekend. Won 3 straight games. As I've said before, this team really knows how to heat up when postseason rolls around and everything's on the line. So credit to them for finding a way to get 3 wins. They beat Austin College 31-2 on Friday, Stanford 18-16 in overtime on Saturday, and UCLA 15-13 on Sunday. So let's start with the Friday action. Jack Martin led the way with 8 goals against Austin College. It was a blowout from start to finish, pretty much. That one's kind of to be expected, but still just definitely good for USC to get a good win, especially after a tough loss against UCLA the week prior. This is all at UCLA, by the way. Then against Stanford, Carson Kranz led with 5 goals. Against the Cardinals, very back and forth. The USC prevailed in overtime. It's a big win considering USC struggled to beat Stanford throughout the school year. And then against UCLA, Max Miller, pardon me, and Robert Lopez Duarte each had 3 goals against the Bruins, and USC was able to build a big enough lead in the first half. So even when USC started to chip away a little bit at it in the second half, it wasn't enough for the Bruins to close the deficit. So it's the third straight MPSF tournament title for this team. As I've said, they're very good in the postseason, and that gives them the MPSF automatic bid and their 28th consecutive NCAA appearance. So they will enter the tournament as the 2 seed with a 21-5 record. The tournament will be up in Palo Alto, hosted by Stanford. They'll play Cal Baptist, who's 23-13, on December 6th at 4 p.m. And the Trojans did beat the Lancers 21-12 on September 27th at home. So this is a huge bracket that's very favorable, I think, for USC, because while Fordham's definitely going to be good as the number 3 seed, both UCLA and Stanford are the 1 and 4 seeds, meaning they will meet in the semifinals, and USC is the 2 seed, so on the other lower part of the bracket. So USC only would have to face one of them if they both win their opening round matchups in the quarterfinals. So I think it's a huge break for USC. I think they got a very favorable hand, and I think they definitely have a shot to win it all this year and at least make the finals. So really excited to see this team try to bring home the first trophy, first national championship 137 for the University of Southern California. So fight on, men's water polo. Now we'll get to women's volleyball. Before we get into how the team fared last weekend and into their upcoming schedule, I'd like to take a moment to congratulate both Allie Batenhorst and Mia Tuaniga on being drafted into the Pro Volleyball Federation early this morning. Batenhorst was the 7th pick of the second round. We'll actually go back to Nebraska, where she did transfer from the University of Nebraska to come play at SC for her final year of eligibility. So she's going back. So she's going to the Omaha Supernovas. And Mia Tuaniga, meanwhile, was drafted in the 4th round, 3rd pick to the Atlanta Vibe. So big congratulations to both of them. Really excited to get. They're 2 of the most fun players I've gotten to watch in my time at USC. So I'm really excited that they're getting the opportunity to take their careers professionally and keep playing this amazing game of volleyball. I mean, it's really exciting to see. I wish them all the best, and I'm really excited for both of them. So fight on, both Mia and Allie. Can't wait to see you two dominate in the pros after your time at USC has come to an end. Fight on. On to their schedule this week. So they got a 3-1 win at Northwestern on Thursday. Then took a 3-0 loss at number 8 Purdue on Saturday. So against the Wildcats, Batenhorst led with 22 kills, and it was definitely tight in the first 2 sets. Northwestern did claim the second set. It was really back and forth, but it seemed like USC did manage to wear them down in those first 2 and was able to just kind of dominate sets 3 and 4 and move to a relatively decently easy win against the Wildcats. So definitely was tough to watch those first 2. I was able to catch this whole most of the match, but it was tough seeing them struggle kind of in those first 2 sets and got me a little worried, but I was really happy to see him just come out and just kind of play with a bit more fire and passion, really just put the Wildcats to bed pretty early or just pretty easily in those final 2 sets, which is what you want to see out of this team, especially in the home stretch of the season as they get ready for playoffs. Against Purdue, things were a little tougher. I mean, it was a competitive match throughout. Batenhorst did have 14 kills, led the way there against the Boilermakers. And I think just Purdue played a little better, back and forth, looking at the box score. So it was definitely tight sets, a close match, even though it was a sweep. As I've said before, just because you get swept in volleyball does not mean it was a tight match. Having played volleyball myself, I've been swept. When I played in high school and club, my team's been swept, and it was still a very close, respectable match. So it does not mean anything if the sets are tight. That's really where you want to look at the scores. What were the rallies like? How tight were the sets? That's where you'll really see if it was a tight match or not. So I think this was definitely a tight match, even though it went 3-0 to Purdue. So USC currently ranked 21st in the country, actively checking, but still no updates from the AVCA in terms of rankings this week. So they're still 21st. I suspect they're probably going to stay in the 20. I don't think they'll get any higher than 20th, but I also don't see them getting lower than 23rd, considering they beat a team they were supposed to in Northwestern, even though they dropped a set I think they probably shouldn't have. But then also they did lose, and I'd say played pretty competitively against the number 8 team in the country in Purdue. So I think they should stay about where they are. Obvious, maybe move up one, but I don't see them moving any lower than 23. So I'd say they're in somewhere between the 20 to 23 range. We'll see how the AVCA voters, if the AVC, how the AVCA voters' opinions differ from mine. Based on what I saw, that's where I'd put this team. But anyways, so they're now 19-9 in the year, 11-7 in Big Ten play. They're tied for 6th with Minnesota in the Big Ten standings, and 2 remaining games in the regular season before the playoffs start and the selection show happens. That'll be taking place December 1st. I'll bring you updates from that next week on next week's episode of Behind the Caution Tape. And then as for this week, they go to Washington for a rematch when USC beat UW at Galen 3-1 on November 3rd. Remember, that was the game where after coming back from Seattle for football, I was there with Austin Robertson for the volleyball match the very next day. So tiring 2 days for both of us. So that game's at 4:30 p.m. on Big Ten Plus on Wednesday. So UW 19-9, 9-9. They're definitely gonna be hungry for, a chip and playing with a chip on their shoulder after losing to USC early. And then USC finished the season out against Iowa, who's 10-20 and 4-14 on the year. So Hawkeyes have definitely struggled throughout this early part of the season. So USC needs to take advantage and get some big wins on these final 2 games of the season. And really, like I've said before, I was even talking to a player about this over the weekend. USC needs to just play angry. That's when they play best. I know I've said this before, but you look at them whenever they just feel disrespected, you can kind of see it. And that just sets something off them. They just play so much better. And it's been evident throughout the year. If they come out looking angry, you do not want to be facing this team. That's when this team is most dangerous. So that's the biggest thing I really want to see out of this women's volleyball team this week is I just want to see them playing with anger. I want to just see them go up to Seattle, play dominant, take care of business against the Huskies, then come back and get a senior night W against Iowa. I want to see it all just while they just are playing angry. I know I've used that word a lot, just now in that phrase, in just that rant, just now, if you want to call it a rant, or just in past episodes. But I've watched this team enough. I've already been to 18 matches in person, watched a handful more on TV when they've been on the road. And when they're angry, you don't want to face this team. Trust me on that. So best of luck to them at Seattle. I will be at their senior night against Iowa on Friday night, which is at 7 p.m. also on the Big Ten Plus. Now let's move on to the women's soccer team. I actually did get a chance to go down to one of their matches this week. So as we've talked about, Rawlinson Stadium is still under construction. So the team has been playing off campus for the most part. And they just showed up to their fourth home stadium of the season. So they were actually playing down in Irvine in Great Park, where the baseball team has been playing most of their games for the past 2 years because of construction at Dado Field. And honestly, it was a cool venue. I really liked it. Got to, meet a couple people in athletics, and it was a really fun time. A lot of people actually showed up, surprisingly. It was a decent crowd. But I mean, it's really nice. It's a great environment to watch a game, is why I really love Great Park. But anyways, so USC on Friday night in the round of 32, the game I was at, beat St. Louis in overtime 4-3. And then on Sunday, for a game I wasn't at, beat Wisconsin 3-1. And both those being at Great Park. So we'll start with St. Louis. It was a back and forth game. Miley Hayes led the way with 2 goals, scoring twice against St. Louis, once in regulation, and then got the game-winning PK in overtime. It was really back and forth game. USC scored once and St. Louis, and then it was just back and forth. And even USC is up 3-2 with less than 5 minutes. And even the fans, we were all thinking, okay, we got this. We're going start chanting, "We are SC." And then suddenly the Billikens get a goal. Credit to them for being aggressive. They're a very good team. I will give them credit for that. And it was a hell of a match. It was one of the really exciting matches because it's just so back and forth. Like probably the most exciting match I went to all year because of all the action. And I know it's saying something even though I was at the Ohio State and UCLA games, but those were really just 1-0 games that USC won, whereas this just kept going back and forth, which made it really, really exciting. So yeah, it was definitely great to see USC advance to Sweet 16. And then against the Badgers on Sunday, US three different Trojans scored with BK Harris getting the action going, the PK goal early. Badgers did get a goal back late in the second half, but they were already down 3-0 by that point, so the game was basically over. So USC onto the Elite Eight. They now stand with a record of 18-1-3. They will next host Wake Forest, who is 15-3-3 on the season at Dignity Health Sports Park, the track stadium in Carson. So they'll be on back there at 2 p.m. on November 29th. TV has not been determined. Wake Forest is a 2 seed in the NCAA. Took down Ohio State 1-0 in the Sweet 16. So it's definitely USC's. This is going to be a really tough matchup for USC. It's definitely. I won't make it to it since I'm going down to town briefly for a minute for to see family over Thanksgiving. But definitely, should be a great matchup for sure. And really, this will be USC's chance to go to the Final Four in Cary, North Carolina for a chance to compete for the national championship. So really exciting opportunity for this team here. Really excited to see how they play, and best of luck to them this weekend. Fight on. And then now we'll go to men's basketball. We beat San Jose State on last Wednesday, 82-68, and then beat Grambling 80-69 yesterday afternoon. And then against SJSU. Chibuzo Agbo and Terrence Williams II each had 20 points against the Spartans. The USC was in control pretty much for the entirety of the game, so it was a pretty comfortable game to watch. But then against Grambling, Tigers, will give them credit. They came out ready to play. And I've said before, a lot of the teams that USC has scheduled in their non-conference schedule, a lot of those guys, they probably wanted to play out of school like USC. Maybe they got one call from a coach and then just never heard again. So they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. So the way I describe these games, and USC needs to watch out, is these guys are playing like it's a Final Four for them. Because that's kind of the big opportunity. It's basically their chance to be like, look at me, coach. You should have took me, sort of thing, as the way I've looked at it. And I've seen this kind of, I think the best example was last year. Granted, Eric Musselman wasn't the coach, but that Long Beach State game that the Beach won in overtime over the Trojans at Galen. That's how all those guys were playing. They were like, I wanted to come here. You didn't take me, so time to show you that I belong. So that's kind of the mentality I see a lot of these teams having. So Grambling, credit to them. They're competitive, but USC was able to pull at the end. And Agbo went off, especially from downtown, 21 points off the bench. Cohen at 18, and but USC obviously pulled away at the end. So definitely what I want to see off this team is just less turnovers, better shooting efficiency. And I know he only played 9 minutes. He played a bit more, 20 minutes, I believe, against Grambling, 9 against San Jose State. But Josh Cohen needs to play more. He's clearly just one of those really good guys. So I'm surprised that Musselman's benching him. I really want to see him play more this week, especially with the two matchups that USC has coming up in the Acrisure Classic. So they got St. Mary's, who's undefeated at 6-0 on Thanksgiving Day at 6 p.m. And then the following day, depending on how they do, they'll face either New Mexico or former Pac-12 foe, Arizona State, who are both 5-1 on the year. Mexico's going to be especially dangerous being from the Mountain West, and especially because they took out UCLA a couple weeks back. And that'll be on Black Friday, either at 6:30 p.m. If USC wins, they'll play at 6:30. If they lose, they play at 9 p.m. And they'll face the winner of the New Mexico ASU match. Both those games that week will be on True TV and Max. Women's basketball, meanwhile, only had one game, but it was a tough one. A loss to Notre Dame, 74-61, in front of a sold-out crowd. And lots of celebrities pulled up, including Snoop Dogg, Michael B. Jordan, and Cameron Brink. and there were more too. And I even was fortunate to get a photo with Cameron Brink. Maybe those of you followed me on Instagram saw it up there. I think for the video version, if you check now, there will be a I will put a photo up of me with her. So definitely cool to see her come by the student section. She's like, "Hey Cameron, can we get a selfie?" She's like, I think she briefly had to go, but then came back, and it's really cool. I actually get to meet her, especially because as a Sparks fan, I have her jersey, and it's just women's basketball's taking off. It just was really fun to watch her play last year, and glad she's not on a team I'm cheering against anymore. So glad you're at the Sparks now, Cameron. Glad you've graduated from Stanford. But anyways, great to see so many celebrities show up, especially Snoop Dogg being there in a in a customized Juju jacket, which is really cool. So it's just a great game to be at, but it was definitely a tough one for sure for the Trojans. It didn't help that Kenny Smith is now out indefinitely after having had a surgical procedure over the weekend. Per Gottlieb, she will return at some point this season. Haley Heckel, freshman, started in place of Smith. And even though she didn't exactly have the greatest statistical game, she was a beast. And I was really impressed. And she's been doing this all year. She's been throwing herself on the floor. And it's just, I love that effort that she's been displaying. Like, when she really, like, her nickname is K9, she's been living up to that. But anyways, so I think just with that, it was just definitely a tough game. Notre Dame got up 20-10 after the first quarter, and USC was able to close the gap at times, never fully tie it or take the lead. And the Fighting Irish were really in control for most of it. Watkins had 21 points, but USC shot 35.8%, so not very great shooting efficiency, and had 21 turnovers. It was one of those games, I think, as Gottlieb said, I'm paraphrasing her here. She said, you schedule these games because it's either you get great victory or you, quote, get exposed. So USC definitely did get exposed, but it's a long season. I'm confident this team will bounce back from it. Definitely a bunch of chaos over the weekend. South Carolina lost at UCLA yesterday, but it was definitely, a tough game, as I was saying. And for Notre Dame, Hannah Hidalgo, sophomore, had 24 points. Olivia Miles had 20. So that drops USC to 4-1 on the year. They fell from 3rd to 6th in the AP poll. So they're going to need to clean up their mistakes going forward. I'm confident they will. This is a very good team. And they faced another really good team. So that's just how things go sometimes. Definitely doesn't always break your way, but I'm confident this team is going to find a way to bounce back. And it's a long season ahead. Remember, we're only 5 games in. There's about 25 about 25, 24, 25, 26, and then give or take how they do with the Big Ten tournament. So a long season ahead, I guess, is my point there. So up next, USC will be taking place in the Women's Acrisure Holiday Invitational. So they'll also be there in Palm Desert with the men. So it'll be great for them to support each other. I won't be going up since I'll be in Texas for part of the week. Getting back in time for the women's volleyball match against Iowa on Friday afternoon. So that's what I'll be at, and I'll talk more about the end. But for this team, they got Seton Hall's 4-1 on Wednesday at 4 p.m. They'll have Thanksgiving off. Then they'll play St. Louis, who's 2-4 on the year, at 4 p.m. Both those games on True TV. So USC definitely 2 good opportunities to get back on track and improve to 6-1 over the next 2 games. Really get themselves to they're still in a good position. It's obviously early in the season. They still have a lot of time to turn things around and get back on track. So looking forward to be back cheering on this team following after Thanksgiving. Our final team tonight we'll talk about is, of course, football once again. So they beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl 19-13. So the victory bell is coming back to USC. And also, that was the 6th win of the year. They're now 6-5. USC is going bowling. Where that will be is to be determined. And I'll get more into that a bit. And I'm going to talk more about just the whole bowl situation probably next week, I think, as kind of that approaches. And we have kind of a clear idea of where everyone stands in the playoff picture. And I'll explain kind of how USC possibly could still get, for how this season has gone, a decently respectable bowl game considering everything that's happened. But so it was a very defensive battle of the game. UCLA, and I think one thing that did help UCLA, but I think also was that that they are trying to use the same scheme that Danton Lynn implemented before he got hired here and flipped to the good side of the rivalry. And obviously he was implementing that, so UCLA kind of knew what to expect. But anyways, aside from that, I think it was definitely big that very defensive battle. Jaden Mayava in his second start went 19 for 35, threw for 220 yards and a touchdown to Jacoby Lane to win it kind of late. It was a crazy touchdown. I'll just kind of describe it because I was in the back of the end zone, so I saw the full thing. USC's coming towards me on offense. UCLA's has their backs to me trying to stop. Jaden Mayava takes the snap. Play kind of goes crazy. He's dancing around, looking a lot like Caleb Williams. This is why I like him. He really fits the Lincoln Riley air raid scheme. I think he definitely, still a bit raw, still needs some polishing, time to develop. But I think him coming in now, being, getting the start, being the presumptive starter, and barring anything crazy happening, I think he's going to be the guy in 2025. And I think he can get a lot better in Riley's offense next season. So I think USC can really take advantage of that and just utilize it to make him a really good quarterback. But anyways, this play, he's dancing around. I noticed he actually missed Lake McCree in the back of the end zone. I don't know why, if he just missed him or UCLA was in his face or what, but suddenly just finds Jacoby Lane in the corner of the end zone and just nails it right to him. So definitely a really great play. Helped USC get the win. So it was overall a really exciting game. Be at Woody Marks had 79 yards on 18 carries, and Kyron Hudson had 79 yards on 6 receptions. Obviously, as I was saying, USC struggled at times, but they found a way to get the job done. I've got a lot of confidence in Mayava to be the QB of the future. So USC now 6-5 on the year. They got Notre Dame coming to the Coliseum. That'll be at 12:30 on Saturday on CBS. It's going to be a big game, not just because of the rivalry. I mean, we all know we hate Notre Dame. But the Jewel Shillelagh, I'm not saying that right. So if anyone wants to come at me, feel free to give me a proper pronunciation check on that. I will happily take it. And I deeply apologize. Let's get the Shillelagh back. And also, USC can play spoiler to Notre Dame. And that feels really good to say because Notre Dame 10-1. This is basically they got to win this and they're in the college football playoff. Lose this and they will not be, especially with the bad loss they got to Northern Illinois. So it'd feel really good to just spoil Notre Dame's playoff hopes this year. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. USC can also, with a win, improve their bowl positioning, and that will be among the Pac-12 teams. So I'll break that down next week. And as I was saying, a lot of it depends on just how everyone fares. All the other former and current Pac-12 teams fare that are still either that are already bowl eligible or in contention or can still play for a bowl. So I will break it all down, I think, next week, or if not, the week after. Probably next week, because I think we won't talk again until after the bowl selections are made. So I'll break it down next week, but if not, I'll let you know otherwise next week. One final bit of news before we wrap up is Caleb Williams will be the tunnel captain for the game. I meant to talk about that last week, but so I'm really excited to see him make his return to the Coliseum and just be there to rally this team one last time, especially being a former Heisman winner and helping make USC football fun, especially my sophomore year with his really fun style play. And it was fun. I'm really excited to see him come back. And also just, I'm really happy. I mean, obviously I miss him this year, being not leading the team on the field, but he had to do his best for him. I can't blame him for that. And I'm really excited. And I'm just excited to just see him, continue to just improve in the NFL. I'm not a Bears fan, but I'll always be a Caleb fan because he came here and helped, win a Heisman and just been a fun, and it was just a really good time when he was here. So overall, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Before we go, getting how I did last week, I went 4-1 in the 5 events I went to. So puts me at 34-10 on the season, 246-92 all time. As I was saying, because of just travel and everything, it's actually a relatively quiet week for me, I got to say. So I'm going to women's volleyball Friday night against Iowa and then football Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon against Notre Dame. So that's pretty much it. Not too much happening around campus, especially with the holidays. Our teams are out of town or off campus. So definitely excited. Make sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit. you're enjoying this podcast, either the video version or the audio, make sure to subscribe wherever you do listen or watch your podcasts. And I think that's all I got for you today. Definitely best of luck to everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I won't see you all until next week. So definitely make sure to take care, spend time with your families, and just really enjoy the holiday season. So thank you all again for tuning in. Love you all. Means the world that you all tune in for me every week. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone and fight on.